Online church has never been more accessible or more important. However, many churches are still wrestling with whether to lean in and do it in an excellent way for the long term, or to pull back and go back to church pre-COVID once they're able to. In my opinion, a lot of the decision making around this revolves around some unspoken and unwritten myths about what online church means. So in this video, we're going to tackle the 4 most common myths I see about online church. Hey, thanks for checking this video out. I'm Spencer from churchvideoschool.com, where we help churches win when it comes to video and online ministry. Before we dive into the video, if you're still struggling to figure out what equipment you need and what cameras and lenses and live streaming gear is right for you, make sure you check out the Church Video Gear Guide in the description below. It's free, it's a great resource for you to pare down the countless options of stuff to find what's right for you and your budget. Okay, myth number 1. If we do online church, we're just giving in to people's laziness. If you think about it, this myth really leans on this idea that it's morally beneficial to get in the car and drive to your church building versus doing almost the same thing in another place, someone else's house, your own house, or while traveling. But I can think of at least a dozen good reasons why somebody would not be able to or would choose not to come to your building to worship on a Sunday morning. For example, you've got kids' soccer games, family trips, work trips. You've got people who are actually sick. You have people who want to avoid getting actually sick. You have elderly folk who have a really hard time getting ready and getting out the door safely and in a timely manner. You have people who don't have reliable transportation. You have people who live far away. I mean, I could go on, but the bottom line is that online church is not just giving in to people's laziness, it's giving people an opportunity to worship when it's not appropriate, when it's not safe, when it's not their best choice to come to your building on your timetable for when it works for you to host a worship opportunity for them. Number 2, it's not authentic ministry to do online church. If you believe this, or you say this, or you hear this, what's really being said is online ministry is not the same as in-person church. And I would 100% agree with you. However, that does not equate to it does not do effective ministry. It is not real ministry. Saying that they're not the same does not inherently imply that one works and is legitimate and one does not work and is not legitimate. There are things you can do in a room with 3,000 other voices, other people, that you cannot do in a room with 6 or 8 people sitting in a circle. Both of those things have found their place in the Christian world in church practice. And both of those things are different, but they do different things differently, some well, some not so well. You cannot get the same kind of community, knowing and being known, vulnerability, confession, and encouragement in a room of 3,000 that you can in a small group setting of 6 or 8 people in someone's home. However, you also cannot experience 3,000 other voices singing together, singing as one, experiencing God's power and majesty in a worship set that's, led by talented producers and musicians and people with artistic gifts and capabilities in a room of 6 or 8 people. You can't do those two things. And that's just an example to say, just because they're different does not mean that one counts and one doesn't. I think it's pretty obvious that online church does some things well and some things not so well. Content translates really well online. Teaching, announcements, any information-based thing does almost as well online as it does in person. Obviously, worship is different. It's going to be more receiving and having your mind and heart change than it is going to be participating, because you're going to be sitting at home watching worship occur in a room. That doesn't mean that it doesn't count and that it's not worth anything. I didn't turn the daggone heater off. The bottom line here is that online church looks different than in-person church, but that does not mean that it's not real, that it's not effective, that it cannot do gospel ministry, missional work. And to think that is honestly just a really small limiting belief. And it kind of fires me up when I see pastors who dig their heels in and say, no, it's in person or nothing, because a lot of times those pastors are more married to their way of doing church, their model, than they are married to the mission of their church, which is to spread the good news of Jesus and have people's lives changed by Him to become more like Him. That is the mission of the church, is to spread the message and grow people in their faith to be more like Jesus. If you are more married to the way that you do that than the end goal of that mission, you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what's really important? What is most important to us? Why do we even exist? All right, number 3, if you're doing online church, it means you're abandoning in-person church for good. I hope this is obvious, but you're not. You are merely providing a supplemental way for people to engage with you, your leadership, and your ministry experience. The reality is this: factually, according to the Barna Research Group, before COVID, the average churchgoer who labeled themselves as a regular attender only showed up about 1 out of 4 Sundays per month. So even before online was big and before COVID, that was what you were looking at as your most engaged group, other than the 20% who are super volunteers and show up every single Sunday. You're looking at about 1 out of every 4 Sundays as a regular attendance number. So you can either dig your heels in and say, no, you've got to be in our building at these specific times if you want to worship with us. Or you can say, you know what? How about we create as many touch points as possible for where people are, going to the people, so that they can continue to stay engaged with us and we can stay engaged with them, and create those touch points during the week, during the weekends when they're not here. This is what happened in the 60s and 70s when the NFL started really investing in TV. Is there was fear somewhere, I'm sure, that if they put the games on TV, nobody would come to the stadium anymore, right? Why would you have to pay money to show up when you can watch it on TV for free? Hopefully, you're aware of the fact that that looks like a ludicrous argument to make 50 years later with the billions of dollars in contracts that the NFL does just for TV, right? But it bears repeating, since we're breaking down these myths, that people know that in-person and online aren't the same. People know that if they're going to go in person, they're gonna have a better experience because they get to be there, shake hands, see people face to face, feel the environment, feel the buzz of being in the room, hear the PA and the band, and just be a part of that event, that worship experience, that gathering. It's pretty obvious that you can't do that from home. However, you're not going to get people to come back 4 out of 4 Sundays. So let's go to where people are. If you're doing online church, what you're really saying is, hey, we're going to come to you. We are going to meet you where you are as people and do ministry where you are, which is at home on a screen, whether you're traveling or you're ill or you just want to stay home for your own health and safety, or just because it was just too complicated to get the kids ready in time this week. So it is not true that if you're doing online, you are abandoning in-person gatherings. Trust me, if you invest in online, you are going to actually see more people show up in person than you did before, because you're building trust, you're building that connection with people so that you're actually a bigger part of their lives now than you were before COVID. I just want to bust this myth down. Totally not true. The more engaged people are with you, with your content, with worship, with whatever you're putting out there for community and other stuff to build their faith, trust me, people are not going to lean out, they're going to lean in. Okay, last, number 4, online church is only for megachurches. Hopefully you have seen that this isn't true because you've been forced to go online because of COVID, but especially before the situation we're in now, this was a really deep-seated belief that only churches with super good cameras, lots of staff, lots of budget could do online ministry. And the reality is that's just not true. I've learned, especially this year, that if you go back 20 years or even 15, 10 years and look at the equipment needed to do what used to be just TV ministry and kind of slowly got online, it used to cost like $700,000 to $1 million to get TV quality analog equipment set up with all the staff and all the stuff you needed to put your church on TV. And the contracts you needed with the airwave time, and I mean, it used to cost so much money, and that gear is still heinously expensive. But there's been an absolute revolution in digital technology for both cameras and hardware switching devices and streaming stuff. And so yes, it is a little bit of a financial investment compared to not doing anything at all. But considering that it used to cost 6 or 7 figures to do online broadcast ministry, and you can do it for like 10 grand, sometimes less than 10 grand, have a really quality online experience. I mean, it's amazing what can be done today with the technology that we have. The most important thing is, yes, you do need some resources, you do need to invest in this, but you really just need to commit and say, this is what we're gonna do. We believe this is the future, we believe God is going to use this, and we're gonna find a way to make it happen. Let me wrap this video up on a little bit of a spiritual note, if that's all right with you. I don't kind of go this direction super often in my videos, but I just think it needs to be said that if you're a church, especially small to mid-sized church, that's kind of intimidated with the finances, intimidated with the gear and the time and resources it takes to go online and stay online, I just want to say to you, let's look at it from this perspective. If you truly believe that God can use that platform to reach more people than you can ever reach just in your building, if you believe that this is a way for you to spread the message of Jesus, grow people's faith, and lead your church better, then I want you to ask yourself this question. If we take a step of faith, if we get to an uncomfortable place with our finances, we commit and put ourselves out there and take a risk, do we really believe that God is not going to honor that investment, that commitment, that sacrifice? Do we really believe that God's going to leave us hanging and be like, hey, nice try, but you didn't buy the right camera, so no one's going to show up. No one's going to engage. This is going to be a waste of time. I want you to really think about this as church leaders having conversations about online ministry. You've seen the numbers. You've seen the incredible potential it has. My question to you is, are you willing to take that step of faith and take that risk to invest, to lean in, to follow God, and take that step of faith to do it and do it well? I hope the answer is yes, and I hope that this video has broken down some myths that says, hey, doing online church does not mean this, this, and this. What it really means is that you're going to your people. You're doing ministry where people are. And yes, you want to draw them into the building. You want to draw them closer than just watching on a screen. But boy, it's just an incredible opportunity to connect with people where they are and have unbelievable reach and influence, more than you'd ever have just inviting people to come to your building at a certain time, at a certain day. So I hope this video has really helped you shape your thoughts on this and helped you kind of reframe your thinking about online church. Again, if you want to take that step, if you want to talk to somebody about what it takes to get to the next level with online ministry, to make it a really meaningful part of what your church does, click that link below, schedule a call with me. It's going to be an awesome time talking through how to get you guys from A to B. I'd love to work with you and help your church hit its goals when it comes to live streaming and online ministry. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in for this whole video. I hope this has been helpful to you. Like and subscribe if this has helped you. Leave a comment below if you got some thoughts. I'm sure you have a few thoughts after the stuff we talked about today, and I'll see you next time.